Good evening. This is the July 24th meeting of the San Francisco County Transportation Authority Community Advisory Committee, or CAC. I'm Kat Siegel, Chair of the CAC. Our Vice Chair is Naj Daniels. Madam Clerk, please do a roll call to ensure we have quorum, and then please read an announcement about public comment.
CAC members, when I call your name, please say present to ensure quorum. Member Bars absent. Member Chen absent. Vice Chair Daniels
present.
present. Member Davidson absent. Member
Ford present.
Present. Member Kim
present.
present. Member Levine
present.
present. Member Margarita
present.
present. Member Milford Rosales
present.
present. Member Ortega
present.
Chair Siegel
Present.
present. Chair Siegel, we have quorum. Also, public comment will be available for each item on this agenda via telephone by calling one of the numbers listed on the front of the agenda or joining the meeting through the Zoom link. Once you join, you will be able to listen to the meeting as a participant. To make public comment on an item when the item is called, members of the public participating by Zoom wishing to speak use the raise hand feature or dial *9. Do not press *9 again or you will be removed from the queue. When you are asked to unmute yourself, press *6 or the unmute button to unmute yourself. The live operator will advise you that you have 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, we will move on to the next caller. Best practices are to speak slowly, clearly, and turn down the volume of any televisions or radios around you. Thank you. That concludes my announcement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That puts us on item 2, which is the chair's report. Our agenda tonight features several Vision Zero updates and an update on transit recovery and fiscal cliff from Transportation Authority and SFMTA staff. I will note that these were agendized for yesterday's Transportation Authority board meeting, but were continued to a future meeting due to time constraints. SFMTA has requested that we defer the transit recovery and fiscal cliff item to September so that SFMTA board and the Transportation Authority board can be briefed first. That means that the CAC will receive the SFMTA update on September 25th, along with updates from BART and Caltrain. We will still be hearing the Vision Zero updates tonight. Similarly, the executive director's report was not presented at the board meeting given time constraints, but it is available on the agency's website at www.sfcta.org. I'll just highlight a couple of items from that update. BART has resumed installation of new fare gates at Civic Center after installing one fare gate at the Civic Center platform elevator earlier this spring. The new fare gates are designed to improve accessibility, reliability, and maintainability, and to deter fare evasion. The 24th Street Mission Station is next on deck. BART's goal is to finish all SF stations by the end of the calendar year. Prop L has provided $12.5 million as matching funds for new fare gates at all SF BART stations. The Geary 19th Avenue Subway and Regional Connections Study Team began outreach this month to start discussions with community members about what it would take to deliver a new rail subway under Geary Boulevard and 19th Avenue. The Geary 19th Avenue Subway was a key long-term recommendation of Connect SF and the San Francisco Transportation Plan. The current study will lay the groundwork for advancing the project through future planning and project development. The project team hosted 2 virtual town hall events earlier this month, and recordings are available on our website at sfcta.org/Geary19th, where folks can also sign up for email updates about the study. The study team will continue outreach and engagement throughout the summer. Community groups may request a presentation by emailing geary19@sfcta.org. Last meeting, this body had a lengthy discussion related to SFMTA's curbside electric vehicle charging study and pilot. While we ultimately recommended programming sales tax funds for this work, we asked SFMTA to return to the CAC to provide more context and detailed responses to questions and concerns raised by the CAC. After follow-up with the project team, Transportation Authority staff agreed with SFMTA's request to agendize this item for the September 25th CAC meeting, when SFMTA will be further along with the feasibility study and able to provide more detailed responses to the CAC's questions. Meeting management notes. CAC members, please be sure to speak directly into the microphone so that folks in the back of the room can hear you. Please limit your questions to a max of 2 questions per agenda item. CAC members and folks in the hearing room, please turn off or silence all electronic devices and computer notifications during the meeting. That's it for announcements. Are there any questions or comments from CAC members on the chair's report? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment on the chair's report? Not seeing any. Operator, is there any remote public comment on the chair's report?
Checking for remote public comments. Hi, Roland.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. This is Roland. So very briefly, what I would like to do is to circle back to the minutes that the board approved yesterday of the July meeting, and when I talked about public charging. Well, it says that during public comment, Roland Brand stated there's been positive impact to air quality in Bay Area as a result of the increased usage of EVs. He stated the issue with curbside charging was that there was no, well, actually, this is not true. I say there was no level charging, which makes charging very slow. Level 2 charging is slow, okay? So he restated his previous recommendation in light of the San Francisco Municipal, I don't know what it is, Railway, current fiscal situation, which is speculated was caused by dropping revenue from parking. That was not speculation, that is fact. And it's actually on slide number 2 of the fiscal cliff presentation that you were supposed to be hearing tonight that has been deferred to a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no additional public comment.
Great, thank you so much. That puts us on item 3, which is to approve the minutes of the June 26, 2024 meeting, and this is an action item. Do any CAC members have questions or comments on the minutes? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give comments on the minutes? Not seeing any. Is there any remote public comment on the minutes?
Hi, Roland, your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you to have wrote these wonderful minutes. It's much appreciated. I'd like to attract your attention to the very last paragraph on the page 12, where somehow inexplicably, my last name was spelled correctly 5 times. And then if you look at that last paragraph, 5 times, you will see it spelled as L-E-B-U-R-N, Leburn. So if somebody could correct that, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no additional public comment.
Great. Public comment on the minutes is closed, and I assume that can just be updated. Okay, great. Thank you so much. May I have a motion and a second to approve item 3? Moved by member Margarita. Seconded by member Milford Rosales. Madam Clerk, would you please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to approve item 3, member Bars absent, member Chen absent, Vice Chair Daniels, Daniels aye, member Davidson absent, member Ford aye, member Kim aye, member Levine aye, member Margarita aye, member Milford Rosales aye, member Ortega aye, Chair Siegel
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 8 ayes. The motion is approved.
Thank you so much. That puts us on the consent agenda. Item 4 comprises the consent agenda. Staff is not planning to present, but is available to answer questions. Do any CAC members have any questions or comments on item 4? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment in the room on item 4? Not seeing any. Is there any remote public comment on item 4?
Checking for remote public comments. There is no remote public comment.
Great, that's an information item, so we can move to item 5, which is the SFMTA Quick Build Program Update, and this is an information item. And Win No, Vision Zero Program Coordinator, is here with us remotely to present item 5, the first of 3 Vision Zero items on tonight's agenda.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Let me get my slides on deck. Just confirming that you can see these slides. Great. 1 second while I get my windows back up to you because I can see video. And then my name is Win Ngo, as was said, from the Vision Zero Program Manager from SFCTA, and I will be presenting both items, I think 5 and 6. Jen Wang, the Vision Zero Quick Build Program Manager, was unable to be here tonight. Great, okay. Moving right along. So these are on behalf of the Quick Build team. I'd like to begin by highlighting a couple projects that have been recently implemented or are well underway in construction. So on the left, you see the 17th Street Quick Build project, which completed implementation of pedestrian safety improvements and upgraded bikeways along 13 blocks of 17th Street from Potrero Avenue to Mississippi Street. The corridor now features separated bikeways and new loading zones to accommodate nearby businesses. On the right of the slide, you'll see that construction of Frida Kahlo Way Quick Build project is also well underway. Last month, the public works crews worked on concrete improvements, such as a bus boarding island for the 43 Masonic at Judson and Genesee, and traffic islands were also built in June along Judson Avenue at Genesee and Forster. And then this separation helps increase safety for people using bikes, scooters, power wheelchairs, and other active transportation modes. And this month, we started roadway striping and street sign work to kind of best utilize the summer break and minimize any construction disruptions to the schools. And so overall, you'll see kind of a schedule on this slide of projects that are well underway. They have either been installed, are preparing for construction, or about to go into construction. And this slide is just kind of showing what's on deck. We have 7 additional projects that staff are working to advance, which include Oak, Sutter, Beach, and Cesar Chavez, which are all currently being designed and outreached. The Alamany Quick Build project is getting closer to project legislation, and Larkin and Clarendon are also fully staffed and being designed, and implementation will be synced with Public Works repaving schedules. And so over the next few months, what is coming ahead is Frida Kahlo, as mentioned before, is being constructed, as well as Lake Merced, which also features a lot of concrete elements like transit boarding islands and concrete buffers for separated bikeways. Meanwhile, Guerrero Street will be up next for construction. And then, as mentioned before, staff are working on the following projects here and moving them along through design and outreach. Beyond that, we also wanted to share that we'll be bringing 2 ARF requests, funding requests to the board for consideration. The first one will focus on advancing programmatic efforts of the Quick Build program, such as daylighting all intersections of San Francisco, lowering speed limits on the high injury network, and upgrading bikeway buffers to sturdier materials. The second, our funding requests will come later this year, likely the fall, and we'll queue up additional corridor projects that are selected from a combination of recommendations that include the Vision Zero Quick Build pre-planning study, community requests, crash analysis, and other considerations. And this is the last Quick Build slide. So as a complement to the corridor projects that we just discussed, we also have the Quick Build Toolkit project, which is an effort to install safety treatments along the intersections of the high injury network that still remain. So this work is installing tried and true treatments like daylighting and continental crosswalks, and it's progressing at a steady pace. We have a commitment to update the trackers online quarterly. And so as of last month, approximately half of our 900 intersections have been completed. And the link to the website is in the footer on this slide. And I think that is my final slide. And I don't know if you want me to pause or continue with the next agenda item.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll let members ask any questions or give any comments on this item. Member Milford Rosales.
Thank you very much for the presentation, the really good graphics showing what's going on. I noticed on this map, there is a green circle that looks very close to the intersection of Fulton and Arguello, which has definitely had one and I believe 2 fatalities this year at that intersection. As of like 3 weeks ago when I last went through there, it looked the same as it's looked for the past like 3 or 4 years. Are there any intentions to target that area with that specific intersection with a quick build, or has one already completed there?
Let me check in with the project team and get back to you on the specifics for Fulton and Arguello. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or comments from members on this presentation? I was wondering, are you all still on track to implement the Quick Build Toolkit on the entirety of the high injury network by the end of the year? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, that's our commitment, and we're currently on track.
Great, thank you. If there's no additional questions or comments from members, we can take a public comment in the room.
Thank you, Edward Mason. I have a question regarding the cost of this project. What are the hard costs, soft costs, and what are the anticipated, how much have we spent already on what we've been shown? And what is the future projected total cost on this program? And also, what are the source of funds that are contributing to this project? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any remote public comment on this item?
Checking for remote public comments. There is no remote public comment.
Great. Public comment on this item is closed. Would you mind commenting on the sources of funds?
Sure, I can speak to what I know of, and then I might have to get back with check in with our Quick Build program manager for specifics. The funding for Toolkit specifically is through TA Prop K funds, and it's for $6 million. And that's again, the Quick Build Toolkit project is installing core safety treatments for 900 intersections. For the overall Quick Build program, of all the quarters discussed in the first part of the presentation are a combination of funds, which include TNC tax funds, Prop K funds, and other prop funds like Prop B and other funding sources. But I don't know the total amount And I would have to get back to you on that.
Thank you. I think then we can go on to item 6, which is also when no, and that is the SMTA What's Next for Vision Zero information item.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to take these few slides to share what we're thinking of as we wrap up the first 10 years of Vision Zero. Staff are starting to think about what's next for Vision Zero. And so after confirming some existing work, right, and what new state legislation has been funded and approving our MTA budget, we're now kicked off our summer public engagement, where we're coming to meetings like this, reaching out to community groups and other strategies listed here on this slide to kind of just start to consolidate feedback and priorities and best practices and lessons learned so that we can shape the next phase of Vision Zero. We're hoping to have a draft policy this fall, though it likely won't go for full adoption through board resolutions until closer to the end of the year. We're also working on identifying what other kinds of measurable metrics that we can report on regularly and consistently to show on some updated dashboards so that we can continue to ensure accountability as we measure progress towards zero. So part of some of the things we've been doing are conducting peer city interviews. We've talked to New York, who's also turning 10 this year, and other cities like Portland and San Jose and LA who are turning 10 next year. And just speaking with program staff and just trying to absorb as much information as possible. And what are some like key takeaways? So for example, we've talked to Washington DC's speed camera program staff at length because we know they've seen significant safety improvements and are trying to shape our own program for speed safety cameras that we're hoping to launch next year. So that's just one example. And on the right side of the slide, you'll see a QR code to some updated benchmarking reports that the Controller's Office recently released that compare San Francisco to 12 peer cities. And if you go to their website, you can see several different types of dashboards where you can kind of just see how we compare to other cities and what we can learn from them. And this is the last slide, just listing all the different ways that people can plug in and share feedback and priorities so that we can take that into consideration as we finalize kind of what we're initially thinking for post 2024. So I can also share the June blog that the MTA posted that has all this information as well. That has links to multilingual online surveys that you can take or share widely. Our MTA board chair, Amanda Eakin, also has virtual office hours the Monday before Tuesday board meetings, excuse me. And we're also scheduling listening sessions. And you can also contact us directly and email us to come to a meeting. And we're working on a follow-up blog that will be posted shortly, hopefully next week, which will share our 10-year retrospective report and also an updated list of the listening sessions. For now, we will be having a Vision Zero table at all the biking and rolling plan open houses, and that will be listed in the blog. I think I also followed up with staff to share here with the CAC. And we'll be updating the website as well as we confirm more dates for August. And those are the ends of my slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from members on this item? Which cities peer cities are doing making the most progress towards Vision Zero?
I think there are different pros and cons, right? DC has arguably the oldest speed safety camera program. I think I will misspeak. They've had a multi-year program, and so we're trying to learn best practices from there. Portland, that is turning 10 next year, renewed their renewed their policies and had kind of like a renewing commitment with different city agency partners, which we thought was a great idea, and see if we can do something similar to that. And we've been talking, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'll stop there.
Oh, sure, yeah, thank you. I was actually wondering which cities, have any cities made significant outcome progress towards Vision Zero in terms of reduction in fatalities?
I think unfortunately, besides much smaller cities than San Francisco, right? I think there's been a lot of press on Hoboken and Alexandria, but larger urban cities like what we would consider peer cities like New York and DC and LA and Portland are all seeing fatalities either rise or hold steady or go back to for instance, New York, their pedestrian fatalities are back to, I think, their 2014 numbers. And so unfortunately, none of us have gotten to zero yet, but we're trying to figure out what is working best, right? For different, what are the hodgepodge of things and how can we advance things together as at the state or regional, national level to kind of just amplify now that we've been doing this for 10 years now. How can we build on what we've done so far?
Thank you. Is there any public comment in the room on this item?
Thank you, Edward Mason. I would recommend that you communicate with the Valley Transportation Authority. I saw a bus wrap on the back of a VTA bus that said, and I only saw it very briefly, where it said it only takes a second for an incident to occur. I mean, that was the message that was being presented. But I thought it was creative to have it on the bus wrap on the back of the bus. So if you're driving behind the bus, the message is you're looking at the message of driving carefully and the fact that an incident can occur in 1 second. So I looked up on their website and I couldn't locate that specific documentation regarding the bus wrap for the bus. But seeing it for the first time, it was effective because you're looking right at it, and there was a graphic involved with it also. So I would strongly recommend contacting the Valley Transportation Authority regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any remote public comment on this item?
Checking for remote public comment. There is no remote public comment.
Great. Thank you so much. When no, that puts us on item 7, which is the San Francisco Department of Public Health Vision Zero SF Severe Injury and Fatalities Trends Update. And this is an information item. And we have Iris Su, epidemiologist with SF Department of Public Health, joining us remotely to present this item.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Iris Su, and I'm the lead epidemiologist for Vision Zero San Francisco. My position is organized in the DPH Center for Data Science within the Population Health Division. I'm going to be presenting findings from our 2023 fatality report and preliminary findings from our 2020 through 2022 severe injury trends report, which is upcoming for release. The data for this report is provided by a collaboration between the core Vision Zero team, including DPH, SFMTA, Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, and the San Francisco Police Department. So first, I'm going to go over the fatality trends, and this report has been released as of this month, so it is available on our Vision Zero website. Let me get rid of. Do you see the control bar at the top? Is it blocking
No.
your view?
No.
Okay, great. In the years leading up to the adoption of Vision Zero, in particular between 2010 and 2013, the total number of annual fatalities was trending upwards. The average annual fatality trend prior to 2014 was approximately 30 deaths per year. Then, when Vision Zero was adopted locally here, fatalities stabilized just above 30 annually through 2016 before decreasing sharply in 2017. Since 2017, the average number of annual fatalities is about 28 annually. 2023 saw a 33% decrease in overall traffic fatalities compared to 2022, a year that saw the most traffic fatalities on our streets since 2007. Compared to 2022, pedestrians in 2023 experienced a 10% decrease in fatalities, and there was a 55% decrease in the number of people killed in motor vehicles. Overall, across transportation modes, pedestrians are consistently the most vulnerable road users in San Francisco and account for a majority of all fatalities in 2023 at 69%. Motor vehicles, such as cars and trucks, record the second highest proportion of fatalities by mode and represented a lower proportion of fatalities in this mode than in the past several years. Notably, there were 0 bicycle fatalities for the first time in this recorded time period within the Vision Zero jurisdiction. The Vision Zero High Injury Network, or VZHIN, identifies the corridors where the most severe and fatal injuries in San Francisco are concentrated. DPH released an updated network in November 2022. The majority of 2023 fatalities are represented on the high injury network. 65% of total traffic fatalities occurred last year on the VZHIN. In addition, we overlaid fatalities with MTC's equity priority communities and found that 42% of fatalities occurred in those communities. In 2023 overall, fewer fatalities occurred outside of the northeastern city core compared to 2022. In 2023, every mode experienced a decrease in the count of fatalities compared to 2022. In 2023, San Francisco saw approximately half the number of motor vehicles and stand-up power device riders fatalities compared to 2022. Motorcyclist fatalities fell from 5 in 2022 to 1 in 2023, which is an 80% decrease. While 1 person was killed while riding a bicycle in 2022, there were again no bicycle fatalities in 2023 on the Vision Zero SF network. So that's the end of the fatality report trends summary, and now I'll be talking about the severe injury trends, which are will be covered in an upcoming report due out to be released this next month in August. So the figures in this section are again preliminary until the final report is released. In 2014, the method that San Francisco Emergency Medical Services Agency used to identify severe injuries was changed. So while we keep the legacy trends in our dashboard, we do not make comparisons between ZSFG severe injury data pre-2015 compared to 2015 and onward. Overall, from 2015 to 2018, total severe injuries and critical injuries were relatively stable, approximately 119 average critical injuries in blue, and 579 average severe injuries in red at the top for this period. Then between 2019 and 2020, San Francisco recorded fewer severe injuries. 2021 saw a relatively large increase in total severe injuries, see again in red, And while severe injuries decreased somewhat again in 2022, critical injuries remained relatively high compared to our average critical injury trend over time. Comparing the top red ZSFG line against the green SFPD line, you can see that the SFPD data undercaptures total severe injuries, as not every traffic-related injury receives a police report. On average, from 2015 to 2022, SFPD captured 48% of total severe injuries compared to ZSFG's hospitals' severe injury totals. The 2019 to 2020 decrease was even greater among the police data compared to the ZSFG data. In 2022, severe injuries were most common among motor vehicle occupants, followed by pedestrians, motorcyclists, and bicyclists. Standard power devices like e-scooters only had unique ICD codes starting in 2018, and since that year, severe injuries among these riders have increased slightly year over year. While broadly, the overall year-over-year totals for these modes throughout the Vision Zero period are higher than we'd like them to be, it is notable that overall, the severe injury trends since 2014 are decreasing on average for motor vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. And you can see that at the via the dotted lines, with some of the lowest injury trends we've seen in the past 10 years for both pedestrians and cyclists. Unfortunately, we are also seeing that on average, since 2015, critical injuries have increased over time across nearly every mode of travel, except among pedestrians, where the trend line is relatively flat. On average, despite being down overall since 2018. Excuse me. In 2022 alone, when the data were examined by mode of travel, critical injuries are most common among pedestrians, followed by motorcyclists, then motor vehicle occupants and bicyclists. Standard power device riders had relatively few critical injuries given total vehicle miles traveled since data collection began in 2018. 2022 was a notable year for critical injuries among bicyclists. The average critical injury trend was relatively flat between 2015 and 2021, but there was a marked increase in critical injuries among cyclists in 2022. So this is the end of my my fatality and severe injury trend analysis. I will be talking a little bit about 2024 year to date, but I wanted to share some key takeaways from these two different reports. And so in general, the picture of traffic safety in San Francisco is multifaceted and highly dependent on the travel mode of the victims and of the at-fault parties. SFCTA's quick build projects and other creative interventions may help reduce the total number of crashes or close calls. And if we do reduce the number of crashes, then in theory, we may see a subsequent reduction in the injury or fatality totals. But that effect is very differential across different modes. For example, if we achieve a lower encounter or crash rate, but fail to stop the speeds from increasing or the car sizes from increasing, then each encounter, however fewer of them, retains a higher likelihood or probability of resulting in a critical or fatal result for the vulnerable party. For example, non-motorized transporters like cyclists and pedestrians. Severe and critical injuries have affected travelers of different modes in different ways. Pedestrians and cyclists have seen fewer severe injuries, but critical injuries remain high for those users or for those travelers. Motorcycle riders have seen more severe and critical injuries over the past 10 years. Drivers of vehicles have recorded relatively stable severe injuries, but the past 10 years have shown a clear and steady increasing trend in the number of critical injuries. And so while there are some very specific success stories in these data, there is still a lot more work to do to turn the curve on injury trends among all travelers of our city streets. I included these slides as a last-minute request from CTA to talk about how we are doing in our 10th year of our program to date. And so we have data up to May end of May of this year included in this section. So I'll be presenting that for fatalities and severe injuries. So just to orient you to this chart, we have current 2024 data as the yellow bars compared to the 5-year average in the blue bars. And so what you can read this as, the blue bars are the average of an average January number of fatalities compared to the 2024 monthly total of 2 fatalities this previous January. So you can see that the January was slightly lower than the 5-year previous average. And so the blue line is our cumulative 2024 total of fatalities versus the gray dashed line cumulative total across the progression of the year. So you can see that as we started January a little bit lower than the 5-year average, we soon, starting in February, and then definitely by March, we have been above the 5-year average, cumulative average, for the first 5 months of 2024. I did the similar type of analysis for severe injuries. And let me be clear that this is not hospital data, severe injuries. This is solely police department severe injury data. And again, as I mentioned, the police department undercounts the severe injuries by a significant amount, but this data is not quite available in this level of granularity at the hospital level yet. So as you can see, if you look at the 2024 cumulative total in the magenta line, this year has started out higher than the 5-year average for severe injuries and has remained consistently so. And that's in part because the January was much worse than the 5-year average for that month. And so because the 2024 has been slightly higher than the 5-year average for each month, but started off with a pretty bad January, we've been consistently above the 5-year average cumulative total for the first 5 months of this year. So I wish to thank you for your time today, and that's all that I have right now.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Member Levine?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a question about, you talked about the injuries and fatalities. Do we have any data on why or how these accidents occurred? For example, speed, illegal turns, DUIs, for bicycles, for example, a pothole, hitting a pothole. Do we have any information about why or how these accidents occurred?
We do. So police data for both fatalities and for severe injuries or even minor injuries are based off of the CHP 555 standardized form for incidents, for traffic incidents. And that does include the primary California Vehicle Code violation, as well as any subsequent California vehicle violations that the officers have assigned to that incident. So I am able to cross-tabulate the severe injuries by those types of determinations, and that sort of analysis is part of our larger comprehensive plan for severe injury analyses in the future.
Thank you.
Member Ortega?
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions, and hopefully one of them will be quick. I see you have an addendum slide on how severe injuries are calculated. And I wanted to have a bit more clarification on the critical, which is an injury severity scale greater than 15. Just a really quick summary of this. Because that'll relate to my next question.
We are not assigned, we are not actually in control of how that severity score is assigned. It is a clinical diagnosis at the time of the attending physician when they are examined by the trauma staff. And so we have relied on best practice for determining a threshold for what classifies a critical injury versus a severe but not critical injury. And so that is the number that we use. We base it off of clinical expertise and not from a public health determination.
Yeah, sorry, that wasn't a clear question. What does a critical injury look like by this definition? Is it severe enough someone went to a hospital? Is it someone thinks they have a concussion? Is it I scraped my knee? Is it I don't have to be hospitalized overnight. I don't need surgery, but I may have like a sprained wrist. Like I want to understand what that means based on this definition. I guess a little more with like an example or like
Sure.
this defined as like hospital admission, which I'm assuming means something different than the critical. So I'm just trying to gauge what level of severity is even tracked, I guess.
Yeah, minor injuries, for example, a broken arm, are classified as minor injuries. You know, they are complaints of pain, other types of non-emergency injuries. Anything that would require trauma staff to talk about things like, you know, blood loss or severe trauma such as concussions or life-threatening injuries. There is a spectrum around that. There is a more clinical, there's more clinical guidelines for things like, you know, limbs being a certain degree of separated off of your body, for example, and it can get quite specific around that. But needless to say, severe injuries and up to critical are all warranted a level 1 trauma visit, trauma center visit, and not just a regular ER, you know?
Thank you. So that I guess leads me to my next question, which is these numbers are really great, but I'm worried that as we continue to look at this data and as we continue to look at Vision Zero going forward, we're going to miss out on some of the key components of actually understanding some of the effectiveness of the programs we're installing, because I'm more worried, I guess, about the injuries that aren't captured in this data. So for instance, 2 of my coworkers at the same intersection within 2 weeks had their bikes completely broken because they got hit by a car. They did not report to the hospital, but their bikes were damaged beyond repair. They both probably had a concussion, but they didn't report it, and they didn't call the police because they were worried it didn't come. They wouldn't come, and that was kind of it. And so I feel like this data it's highlighting key areas of concern, and it is important. But I'm worried that by focusing so much on this data in the Vision Zero, we're not capturing the injuries like a broken arm that would, I mean, yeah, it doesn't require a level 1 trauma surgeon, but it's still a lot to have. And so I'm wondering if there's any other data or any other presentations where we can capture that these lower level target areas for people where it's obviously the goal is no one dies, but if people are still getting injured and banged up and they can't use their bicycles, I feel like there's still a problem with potentially the approaches that we have going forward on how to solve this. And so I guess, is there any data capture of non-critical or severe injuries that could also be tied back to this, to the high injury network?
We collect all the police department data for any injuries, including non-injuries and complaints of pain, minor injuries that receive a police report. We do not collect non-severe injuries from Zuckerberg San Francisco General because of the specific data agreement requirements that we are fulfilling with them. And it is much more burdensome for them to give that extract to us compared to the data architecture that we've already set up with the police department. All that is to say, there are data sources around minor injuries. We have not prioritized them because there is a lot of interesting questions that we could look into, but they have not been, in terms of the overall mission of Vision Zero, we have been prioritizing fatalities and severe injuries. And we have also talked a lot about close calls and things like that, where there is not necessarily contact between two parties resulting in an injury, but interventions affecting the sort of attributable contact rate between different collision parties. And that sort of data is reliant, we would rely on site surveys and other things to collect that data. And we do not have a citywide data collection system for that sort of data. So a lot of our focus from the public health side is to improve our predictive analytics using the data that we do have, improving the speed and the responsiveness for how we release the data to the public. And in terms of collecting additional data, that we would have to build that into to our strategic planning process if that was something that we wanted to pursue.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'd be curious, it doesn't sound like we have the bandwidth to do this. Sort of how many close calls, minor injuries, other things of that nature were in these same points where we see these fatalities and other things. I don't know if that's something you guys have also looked at, or like critical injuries. It's not an action item or a request. That would be something I'd be curious about if you happen to have something like that already prepared. So thank you for your time.
That data doesn't exist. Mm-hmm.
Member Ford?
Perhaps following up on Member Levine's question. So you said that you do the root cause analysis with the police data. When do those when is there a report about the contributing factors for each of these accidents?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Okay, so we have this report, which is just like the numbers. Is there another report that says, okay, of these 26 fatalities in 2023, these were the contributing factors?
The fatality report includes that information.
Okay, and that's done annually.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is available. We do not do that level of deep dive into the severe injury data because given that we have the hospital data, there is not as much information from the scene of the incident around the different parties involved. The trauma registry data includes just the differential diagnosis and final diagnoses of the trauma specific details of the patient. So one of the things that I want to lead you to is the Vision Zero High Injury Network, which is where we combine methodologies between the hospital data and the police data. We do a probabilistic matching and linking protocol to find as much geolocation data for severe injuries and actually total injuries for the fatalities and injuries in San Francisco, using things like matched ambulance data for pickup locations, the police data that already exists that is geocoded. And this high injury network is the result of that comprehensive process to try and capture as many of the fatalities and injuries as possible, and to identify the corridors that are the highest, incidents. But from DPH's perspective, this is an important step to determining hotspots, if you will, but it is completely descriptive, and oftentimes it is lagged. This latest version was released in November 2022, and it includes data from 2017 to 2021. So this is slated to be updated again in a couple years. We hope to produce this map again, but also to augment it with more predictive analytics around the conditions of the street that lead to a higher probability of injuries or collision. Things that are more forward-looking rather than just descriptive.
Thank you.
Can you comment on whether there are, do you know if there are trends in the factors changing, or sort of to, I guess, ask more specifically the question of are DUIs increasing? Is speed an increasing factor, or is it staying about the same? Are there, specific factors that have been changing over the past 10 years?
Absolutely. Speed is definitely one that we have seen be a big factor in many of the fatalities, is one of the top contributing factors, as the California Vehicle Code violations for one of the top factors within the year's cohort on any given year. Recently, we saw speeds, turns, collisions resulting from a turn, that sort of trend analysis for fatalities specifically is a little bit difficult, because there are, a list of 35 different vehicle codes, and there's often just one fatality assigned to a given vehicle code. And we have seen hit and runs variably change since the pandemic, and they have increased in 2022, for example, before decreasing a little bit in 2023. More details in that can be seen in the fatality report that was just released this month. But I would caution, looking for trends in something as broadly defined as California Vehicle Code violations. It's tough when fatalities are relatively few, and so the data is quite volatile. We'd like to do something around severe injuries regarding that, but we also find that the police department could we are working with them to ensure consistency in that field, but there's often differences of protocol that the police department uses to determine the proper vehicle codes that were violated. And oftentimes the data is not available because it was a hit and run and there was no officer on scene to collect information from witnesses. So all sorts of reasons why the data quality may not be the best to really get to definitive answers.
That makes sense. Thank you. So am I understanding correctly, there's not really a way currently to look at trends in causes of severe injuries, only fatalities?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And again, that would only be police department data that we would have that ability Again, the hospital data does not include information around cause of traffic violation.
And that's mostly like an administrative cost issue or a
It's something that we do for this Vision Zero High Injury Network, which is quite a bit of a convoluted protocol in a good way, statistically complex way to find matching records between two different systems, the hospital and the police department data. Using things like matching name, medical record number if it's available. It's an algorithmic approach that we take. And again, we don't get a majority of records matched because of the difficulty in trying to get these records to identify with good confidence that they're the same person. And so that sort of analysis, with better data would be possible. It's just a little bit less good at the moment with our existing data.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think I quite followed the reason why the hospital can't provide more granular data is just because like we don't have a protocol or an agreement for it right now, or are there privacy reasons, or what is the reason?
Sure. No, there's no privacy reasons. It's just that they're not police officers. They don't ask those questions that are resulting from the causes. They are really trying to treat the problem in front of them. And with fatalities, we get an investigation. We can corroborate the information with the office of the chief medical examiner. But with severe injuries, especially with ambulatory injuries, where they come in, they come out, there's oftentimes, that sort of data is not going to be linked to specific traffic codes or anything like that. It's just, here are your diagnoses and here's the services rendered, and that's it.
That makes sense. Thanks so much for the explanation. Member Margarita?
Thank you for your report. Can you hear me? No. Excuse me. Okay. Again, thank you for the report. I'm still battling with the only getting the information from the police to get the data, because there's a lot of people that are not going to want to call the police, even though they are victims. And I'm thinking of the undocumented immigrant community, who I've actually personally seen an accident, a car hitting someone. This was a few years ago, but the gentleman was scared, even though he was the one that was being hit by a car when he was crossing the street on, Silver and Mission. And so that data is not going to get reported. And so I was just kind of thinking outside of the box of trying to somehow get that data from hospitals if people decide to go and get checked out if they sign a HIPAA form or something like that, so that data can be included in this data, and also partnering with community-based organizations like Communities United Against Violence, CUAV, or Mission Neighborhood Clinics, the Victim Services Division. There's just so many different ways to try and get that information from members in the community if it is that they were victims of being hit by a car or a truck or something like that. Otherwise, I feel like the data isn't super including everyone as victims after an accident, but that's just my 2 cents. But thank you again for your report.
If there are no other comments or questions from members, we can take public comment in the room on this item.
Thank you. I'd like to read a article that appeared in the San Francisco Examiner, November 6, 2014. A 35-year-old man was killed when he was run over by a fuel truck in the Tenderloin Tuesday night. Witnesses told the police the man was hanging on between the two fuel tanks and it was towing. Bottom line is, this appeared in 2014 in a police summary report of injury, of fatalities. And also in that report, I remember, was a report of a person running out onto Van Ness Avenue by City Hall in the middle of the night and got hit by a car and killed. And the last one was that there was a police chase near the Clam House on Bayshore, and there was an injury and a death that occurred. They all appeared as Vision Zero fatalities. So, you know, there needs to be a category for Darwin candidate list. I'd like to see statistics on the victims. We need to know what age and if they have a disability or anything else that they were victim of. And also, I think we need to establish a school education program. On how to ride a bus and transit, and second, how to be a good pedestrian. And I think if we were to establish a training program early on, it'll pay benefits 20 years from now, but it's going to be a long haul. But and also a press release. We have over 1,000 people a year that are being injured. When was the last time you saw an article in the Chronicle or on KCBS? You don't see it. And that's one thing we're not doing, is putting this in the forefront. Unfortunately, my time is up, but I've got other issues to describe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any remote public comment on this item?
Checking for remote public comments. Hi, Roland, your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. My concern, though, is that we are essentially focusing on fatalities. And what I would like to see is you know, the bigger picture. And what I would do is to start with every single police report that is essentially reporting a collision. And whether that's collision with another vehicle or bikes and peds, and then take all that data and break it down. And then obviously at some point you're gonna have somewhere in that breakdown, you're gonna have the severity of the injuries, if any. But in my mind, we've got to look at the whole picture. Even though there's a small collision, potentially you've got something that could escalate in something more serious. All that has to be analyzed carefully and basically take appropriate action as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no additional public comment.
Great, and public comment on this item is closed, and thanks again for the presentation, Iris Sue. This is it wasn't in. Okay, that puts us on item 8, but as I mentioned in my chair's remarks, this item will be continued to September 25th at the SFCTA's request. That puts us on item 9, which is introduction of new business. Do any CAC members have any new business? Not seeing any. We can then go to item 10, which is general public comment. This is general public comments on items under the Transportation Authority CAC's purview that are not otherwise agendized at this meeting. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment?
Yes, thank you very much. Regarding my comments last month, regarding the corporate commuter bus operated by We Drive You having Florida license plates. They are now California license plates, but still no permits, and they're occupying all of the stops. And there's very little enforcement to issue tickets, which is a parking violation ticket. That revenue then goes to Muni. So, you know, that's an update on there. And there's so many buses that are well, some are in compliance and others are in violation, either with expired permits or don't have a permit at all. And these are examples. So I would recommend that you're out and about, take a look at a corporate commuter bus and see if it has the permit and if it's current. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any remote public comment?
Checking for remote public comments. There is no remote public comment.
Great. General public comment is closed, and that puts us on item 11, which is adjournment. Thank you all. This meeting is now adjourned. Please enjoy your summer recess.